The mystery illness that almost ended Stoner's career. Casey Stoner was dominating in 2009 when he suddenly started falling apart physically after races, completely drained, unable to stand. He missed 3 races mid-season while doctors ran every test imaginable. Everything came back normal. The paddock went wild with conspiracy theories. Some said it was psychological. Others whispered he was faking it to escape Ducati. The truth? Lactose intolerance. Severe, undiagnosed lactose intolerance that had gone unnoticed his entire life. The physical demands of racing were amplifying the symptoms to extreme levels. A world champion nearly lost his career because of milk. Not a crash, not an injury. Milk. Once he cut dairy completely, he recovered and won another championship in 2011. Imagine telling sponsors you're sitting out million-dollar races because of cheese. Maverick Vinales tried to destroy his Yamaha mid-race. Styrian Grand Prix, 2021. Vinales was having another frustrating race when something snapped. He started deliberately redlining the engine. On the straights, he'd pin the throttle and bounce off the rev limiter over and over. The engine screaming, smoke pouring from the exhaust. Commentators realized what was happening. He was trying to blow the engine up at 300 kilometers per hour. He pulled into the pits. Yamaha's telemetry showed he deliberately over-revved to the point of potential catastrophic failure. They suspended him immediately and pulled him from the next race. Within weeks, both sides terminated his contract early. Vinales claimed a brake issue made him panic. Yamaha said data showed no brake problems. A factory rider, mid-race, deliberately trying to destroy a multi-million-dollar prototype because he was frustrated. All captured on live television with telemetry to prove it. Suzuki quit MotoGP during a team meeting. May 2022. Joan Mir is the reigning world champion. Alex Rins is fast. The bike is competitive. Then, during a routine team meeting, Suzuki executives dropped a bomb. They were pulling out of MotoGP at the end of the season. No warning. The riders found out the same time as mechanics. Mir and Rins were told to find new jobs while still racing. Dorna was furious. Suzuki tried to quit immediately, but Dorna forced them to finish the season. So for months, you had riders racing for a team that had publicly quit. Mechanics working on bikes with no future. Suzuki had won a championship 2 years earlier and just walked away. Nobody has a satisfying answer why. They left while still competitive. It's like quitting your job right after a promotion. Andrea Iannone got banned for eating meat. Iannone tested positive for drostanolone in 2019, an anabolic steroid. He faced an 18-month ban extended to 4 years. Career over. But he didn't take steroids. He'd eaten contaminated beef in Malaysia. Traces were tiny, nanograms, but enough to trigger a positive test. He fought it with evidence and expert testimony. The FM accepted the contamination was unintentional. They upheld the ban anyway. Strict liability. Doesn't matter how it got in your system. You're responsible. 4-year ban for eating a steak. He was 32 by the time the ban ended. A factory Ducati race winner's career destroyed by a hamburger. The whole MotoGP paddock was stunned. A career ended not by a crash or performance, but by livestock that had been pumped with steroids before Iannone ever saw it. Jack Miller won from pit lane in the rain. Assen, 2016. Miller was a 21-year-old satellite Honda rider, not expected to win anything. Race day, the weather went berserk. Rain, dry patches, more rain. Nobody knew what tires to use. Miller gambled on full wets and started from pit lane, immediately dead last. The wets weren't working on drier patches. Then the rain came hard. Everyone on slicks was crashing. Miller carved through the field like they were standing still. He won. A satellite rider who started from pit lane beat the entire factory field. Marquez second. The timing had to be perfect. 5 minutes earlier or later, he'd have finished last. He'd almost didn't start at all after crashing in warm-up. The team rebuilt the bike with minutes to spare. Everything about that day was chaos. Miller turned it into a victory. That's not skill. That's beautiful randomness. Phillip Island 2013 became a tire lottery. This race was absolute chaos. Bridgestone, the control tire supplier, discovered mid-race that their tires were delaminating, falling apart. The rubber was literally separating from the carcass at high speed. It was dangerous, potentially fatal. So race direction made a call nobody had ever seen before. They shortened the race, mid-race, red flag, then restart with a new shorter distance. But here's the weird part. Because the race was shortened, tire strategy went out the window. Some riders had pushed hard early and were on worn tires. Others had been conserving. The restart reset everything except except tire wear. Jorge Lorenzo won, but the whole thing felt like a coin flip. Riders were furious. Teams were confused. And the precedent it set was bizarre. What if tires fail again? Do we just shorten races whenever Bridgestone makes a mistake? The whole weekend exposed how fragile the control tire system was. One supplier, no competition. And when they got it wrong, the entire championship was affected. Bridgestone pulled out of MotoGP a few years later. And Phillip Island 2013 remains the strangest race interruption in modern history. Not weather, not a crash. Tires disintegrating at 300 kilometers per hour. Jorge Lorenzo raced 2 days after breaking his collarbone. Assen 2013. Lorenzo crashed in qualifying and broke his left collarbone. Clean break. Painful as hell. He had surgery that same day. Metal plate inserted. Stitches. Painkillers. Any normal person would be in bed for weeks. Lorenzo was back on the bike 48 hours later. He raced, not just participated. He raced. Started from the back of the grid and fought his way to 5th place. 5th, with a broken collarbone held together by a metal plate and 48 hours of healing. The paddock was stunned. Doctors were baffled. His team tried to talk him out of it. He did it anyway. The pain must have been excruciating. Every break, every turn, every bump sent force through that fresh break. But he finished. The dedication was admirable. The stupidity was undeniable. This wasn't bravery. This was insanity. And it set a dangerous precedent. Suddenly, riders felt pressure to come back from injuries faster. If Lorenzo could race 2 days after surgery, what excuse did anyone else have? The culture shifted. Injuries became things to push through, not recover from. Marc Marquez's later injury problems probably stem from this same mentality. For casual fans, the idea that someone can break a major bone and race 48 hours later sounds impossible. But Lorenzo did it, and it was simultaneously inspiring and completely reckless. Marc Marquez broke his arm trying to come back too soon. Jerez 2020. Marquez crashed in the first race of the season and broke his humerus, the upper arm bone. Serious injury. He had surgery, titanium plate inserted. Doctors said 6 weeks minimum. Marquez decided 4 days was enough. He showed up at the next race in Jerez, same circuit where he'd crashed. He tried to qualify. He was fast, too fast for someone with a broken arm. Then, during qualifying, he crashed again. Not a big crash, just a small low side, but the impact on his arm was catastrophic. The bone, not fully healed, broke again. The titanium plate bent. He needed another surgery, then another, then another. 3 years of surgeries, infections, complications. His career nearly ended because he tried to race 4 days after breaking his arm. The weirdest part? He was fast during that qualifying session. If he hadn't crashed, he might have actually raced with a broken arm and probably made it worse anyway. The whole situation exposed the dark side of MotoGP's warrior culture. These riders are so conditioned to push through pain that they can't tell the difference between tough and stupid anymore. Marquez lost 3 prime years of his career because he couldn't wait 6 weeks. For casual fans, it's incomprehensible. For those who follow MotoGP closely, it was a tragedy everyone saw coming and nobody could stop. Cal Crutchlow became famous for racing injured. If there's one rider who embodies the weird masochism of MotoGP, it's Cal Crutchlow. This man raced with broken bones more times than most riders crash. Broken ankles, broken wrists, torn ligaments, dislocated shoulders. He'd crash on Sunday, get surgery Monday, and be back on the bike Friday. It became a running joke in the paddock. Crutchlow crashes, Crutchlow breaks something, Crutchlow races anyway. Repeat. The most bizarre instance was Argentina 2018. He crashed in practice and badly injured his ankle. The footage looked brutal. He could barely walk. The team brought out a scooter to get him back to the garage because he couldn't put weight on it. Everyone assumed he was done for the weekend. He raced. Not only did he race, he finished 8th. With an ankle so damaged, he needed a scooter in the paddock. How? Painkillers. Lots of painkillers. Probably too many painkillers. The FM has regulations about what riders can take, but the limits are generous when it comes to treating legitimate injuries. Crutchlow pushed those limits repeatedly. The weird part isn't that he raced injured. Lots of riders do. The weird part is how consistent it was. Almost every season, multiple injuries, always back on the bike impossibly fast. It became his brand. The tough British rider who refused to quit no matter how broken he was. Admirable? Sure. Healthy? Absolutely not. For casual fans, the idea that professional athletes regularly compete with broken bones is bizarre. In most sports, injuries mean time off. In MotoGP, injuries mean painkillers and tape. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into MotoGP's strangest moments, subscribe for more content. These stories are real, they're verified, and they show just how bizarre this sport can get. See you in the next one.